Some doctors now think that because COVID is a vascular disease, it may have long-term impact on a man's ability to become erect. And my first thought was like, we should have been saying this from day one.
Had we known.
Yeah, we should have just made it up. We should have just been like, it's going to make it so your dick don't work. And then people would have worn masks. Everybody would have worn masks.
Next pandemic, that's the plan. We got to do that.
Immediately come out and say, like, it's going to break your penis.
Yeah. This makes your dick just crack in half, this disease. You're going to have to wear a mask.
For a lot of this year, you know, we were locked down. We weren't sure that there was a vaccine that was even coming. So we stayed home. We canceled plans. I canceled 2 fucking weddings. But now there's like a vaccine on the horizon and a timeline for distribution right as the numbers are getting really, really, really bleak. Like a childhood friend of mine, I found out this week, back in northern Wisconsin, her mother got COVID and had to go to the hospital, and the closest bed that they could transfer her to was in Fargo, North Dakota.
I saw your post about this, and it was like horrifying. Like, I just cannot.
She's, you know, that family, I've known them for my whole life, and she's just like, they're just the nicest people. And it's just really, it's like, you know, you see it on the news and you read about it, and it's like when it happens to somebody close to you, you're just like, oh my God. So she had to go to Fargo, North Dakota, 250 miles away. Minneapolis, St. Paul, like, didn't have space to take her. Like, it's really bad. But at the same time, you know, as it's getting this bad, you know, people are telling us lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. I read this week that like 55% of people in Los Angeles are just ignoring the stay-at-home order. So, Kara, I'm going to start with you. Do you think we're getting sloppy and half-assing our pandemic behavior because we've been lulled into a false sense of safety by the proximity of the vaccine? Do we have, if you will, vaccine-uritis?
Vaccine-uritis. That's a good one.
Kiran's making a mad face. She's mad at me.
It's a face of passion. It's a face of passion. Passion mixed with disgust.
I mean, me personally, like, nothing has changed for me since March. Like, everything is pretty much the same. I will say, like, probably August, September, I felt like everybody was loosening up a little bit. Like, more people that were really strict were now willing to, like, go on a walk or, like, hang out in a backyard from 6 feet away or something like that. I felt like people were loosening up as cases were. We were talking about the Citizen app before we got on the mic, and like I was getting Citizen updates every day that were like saying, oh, the cases are decreasing, the cases are decreasing. So I was getting lulled into this like, oh, it's so few cases in LA. Now this spike has hit. I don't know. I'm having interesting conversations with people about the vaccine because some people are like, oh my God, Michelle Collins famously tweeted, I want it blow darted into my neck, like just give it to me immediately. And then I have other friends that are like, I think I'm going to be in the second wave. And it's like, well, of course you are. You're not an ER doctor. So I don't know. I don't know that the vaccine is like making anybody feel more. Maybe it's my own personal bubble. I feel like everyone is still taking it really seriously, but I don't know. Like I haven't heard anybody act like, well, whatever, the vaccine's on its way. In terms of vaccine-uritis.
Right. I mean, does like having a kid
make this worse?
Like, yeah.
Well, on one hand, my mother is a pediatrician and has told me, you know, some of my patients are starting to get it. It's really just not presenting very like badly in children. Like it's just none of her kids are having horrible symptoms. And so that's like a plus for me when I think about taking my daughter to a playground or something like that. But then on the other hand, I know people have varying degrees of safety. It's like no one wants to be the first person who's like, oh, my kid got very sick from COVID because everyone kept saying that no kids were getting sick. I actually got into a little conversation on your Facebook page recently, Erin, where people were talking about playgrounds in LA. I got a text right before we started that said that LA has reversed the decision on playgrounds.
Oh, they were closed down, but now they're open.
They were closed down, and now because parents are protesting it, because parents are like, I think rightfully so, like, why are people allowed to go shop in indoor malls and my kid's not allowed to play outside? And then I think people were saying stuff like, oh, it's the mask issue because kids can't be trusted to wear masks. And I'm like, from personal experience only, the kids at the parks I'm going to are all wearing masks. Most of the kids, like, they go up to each other for 2 seconds and they're like, hi, and then they run away. It's not like there's a ton of breathing and pawing going on. Parents are supervising. But then I hear horror stories from people that are like, I live in another part of LA and the people just all come unmasked and it's a nightmare. So I don't know. It's like, for me, I obviously want to keep my daughter safe, but I also want to keep myself sane. And taking her to playgrounds has been like the only thing we can do with her for the past like 4 months. So I'm very pro playgrounds being open, but I know that that might be controversial.
Yeah, I feel like in about 18 years, there's going to be a lot of like 18 to 25-year-olds who were like toddlers and very small children getting like tattoos of monkey bars on them. And like, I don't know why. Like the slide has always been very important to me. And it's like, your parents took you there every single day for like 9 months. Alyssa, have you noticed any like lockdown fatigue where you are? And what's the situation like up there?
So in upstate New York, people have fatigue, but everybody knows that upstate New York, unless you are in a long-term care facility or with old folks or a frontline worker, you're not getting the vaccine. And I actually took the New York Times Interactive.
So did I.
Okay, let me just say I was behind 287 million Americans, 16 million New Yorkers, and 48,500 people in Columbia County. I didn't even think there were that many people up here in Columbia County. So
Is it the population of the country 300 million or something?
Yeah, 330.
I was like number 267 million or something like that. Like I think I'm a little bit ahead of you, Alyssa. I have no idea why. And because it's literally just age and county. I have no idea why. But like, aren't there more children than that they're not going to be vaccinating? I'm so confused how we are in such a bottom echelon of the country.
I don't know, but I can tell you that really put me in my place. And so I am not being cavalier. I would like to be able to go out to a restaurant or something, but we've reverted. We had like gone out once or twice to like outdoor restaurants, like where we sat under a veranda that had like circulating air and everything. And we're just back to takeout and me cooking all the meals.
So fun.
Kiran, did you notice anything in London when you were over there? And then is anything different in Florida?
This is funny. I always say I was in England. Like I wasn't in London, but
okay.
I was just like an hour north of London. But to the chagrin of everyone who lives in the rest of England, everyone says London. It's not just you, Ryan. It's like everyone. It's like the rest of that garbage country doesn't exist. Hey man, I'm on your side. Look, they were open until about a month and a half ago, and it all felt pretty reasonable. Like you could go to a pub, there was contact tracing, you could still take the bus, so you could take public transportation. The Ubers were open. They were decently open, I would say. When lockdown hit, it hits pretty hard because things close early anyway in the rest of England. And then on top of it, half of those things aren't open anymore. What I will say is I thought the contact tracing was initially better than it was, but it turns out my cousin, his child was in a class. So schools were the one place that they let kids go in and they podded them. So it'd be 30 kids in a class, no masks, and you're in a pod. One of the girls or boys in the class got COVID, and then they didn't test every child in that class. Because the NHS is incredibly strict about you have to have symptoms in order to get tested because it's all government money and government funding, which I thought was very different in California, where it's basically you're feeling scared? Come get a test. It's fine. It's free. You know what I mean? You got to scratch. You want to itch your head? Get a COVID test. It's a very, which is a better system on it. That's better about California, but I remember finding that shocking. I was like, it's not enough that she had exposure to a child. She would have to present symptoms for a disease that has proven to be asymptomatic. Mm-hmm. So England was pretty locked down when I left, and then Florida is I haven't I'm gonna be honest with you, I haven't left the house a ton since I got here. But why
would you? You're in Florida.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The weather is beautiful.
That's true.
Yes, the reason is outside is blue skies and it's very beautiful. But the Miami airport was terrifying. I got stopped a second time. I wish I had a video of it. My mom was like, "You should have taken a video of this." They stopped me. They took my passport away, and the second room that they took you into was hundreds of people with a low ceiling, not socially distanced, where they were calling you out by your I was lucky to get priority because I was an American citizen, so I was in there for 30 minutes as opposed to 6 hours. But it was the lack of social distancing. I mean, it was hundreds of people in a room that was small, poorly ventilated with low ceilings at a major international airport. And you're like, how is this? Like, stuff like that feels so imminently fixable and systemic. Like, why would you create an environment that could potentially be a super spreader of an illness that we know is airborne in a place like that where people are coming through regardless? Like, I found that really upsetting in a way that you're not taking care of literally anyone, including your workers or anyone who's coming through there.
Mm-hmm. I've kind of started to get pissed about the lockdowns and stuff, not because I don't think we should be doing it. We should be doing everything possible to mitigate the spread of COVID. It's a horrible disease, it's not to be trifled with, obviously. But, I am a little bit pissed with the realization of like how many people who are in government and VIP type people are just kind of doing whatever the fuck they want anyway. And we're the ones paying for it, basically. Like Mike Pompeo, for example. One of the worst bitches in Washington. Just terrible man, terrible person. He is having like a Christmas party with like 900 people, not socially distanced. And you know what'll happen to Mike Pompeo if he gets sick? He will get the best medical care in the world.
He's not going to be like driven 4 states away.
Exactly. Yeah, he's not going to be driven to Fargo, to the nearest open bed.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump, when he got sick, because of his own stupidity, he was an immense drag on the time and labor of some of the best doctors in the world who worked to make him better. Like Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, one of the wrongest people about COVID from top to bottom, who is in charge of a state that is a hot zone, essentially, is traveling around, flying around. If she gets COVID, she's going to get governor level care. And it's not just Republicans either. Here in Los Angeles, a public official who is I think she was like a health department official who voted in favor of closing down outdoor dining was seen hours after the vote dining outdoors in Santa Monica. We had the whole French laundry deal, a government official who tells people to stay home and then goes and eats at a very fancy restaurant with the windows are open, but you just told other people that you can't do that and you're doing it anyway. It's just, maybe I'm just very cranky, but I feel like everybody who's been doing this the whole time, who's been trying to be careful, is they're doing all the work so that these fuckos can run around and have Christmas parties. And it just seems so frustrating. I don't know. Alyssa, do you see that? Do you notice that? Do you have a bee in your bonnet about it too?
Look at fucking Rudy Giuliani, a one-man super spreader. And guess what? Now it's either Georgetown or GW Medical Center, and he's getting good care. And, and again, somehow he went from testing negative to being in the fucking hospital within 36 hours, which doesn't normally happen. And so, no, yes. I mean, it's just it's either you're all in this together or you're not. And this is one of the things that working for Barack Obama for 10 years, he was the number one. We have to feel the pain if other people feel the pain. And it gives you credibility. That's the thing. It's if you're a government official and you're staying home and you post on Instagram, show people things that they can do. But then when everybody wants to go out. We all want to go out. I want to go to a restaurant. I want to not have my glasses fog up every time I take a deep breath. I am like, I need windshield wipers for my glasses. I can't control it. And I would give anything to not have to do that. But guess what? You know, them's the fucking breaks, as my mother would say. And I just don't see how anyone can look at their parent, an at-risk sibling or friend, and just think that you're above it. You know, like my dad's at risk. Well, not like he would kill me for saying that, but he's kind of at risk. And he hasn't left the house in a very long time. I mean, he goes out as sporadically as a human can. And like, I want them to not have to think about all of our parents and grandparents and like how much they would like to not worry that going to the ShopRite could land them in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And so just fuck all these people, honestly. It's such fucking bullshit.
I mean, this is going to be the first year of my life that I'm not going to spend Christmas Eve at my house. You know, like first year of my whole life. And it sounds real dumb, like to be hung up.
It's not dumb.
But it's like, you know, I know like people went home for Thanksgiving and like hospitals, people who work in hospitals are now suffering the consequences for other people's decisions. You know, like nurses and doctors and social workers and people who work reception at hospitals are like dealing with people being selfish and and now Christmas is coming up and people are going to do it again. And it's just, I don't know. Like, you know, my friend, I don't want to like say too much about my friend's mom, but because, you know, she's not here to talk about it herself, but you know, her friend's mom wasn't engaged in risky behavior. Like most of the people that get really sick from it weren't the ones out there Rudy Giulianiing, you know, all over the place and, you know, spitting on people and getting spat on or whatever. And it's just, I don't know how to get it through to people. But at the same time, like, it's really, really exhausting to be doing this constantly. I'm so sick of the inside of my house. I'm so sick of it, you know? And like, I want to do something else, but there's nothing else to do. I don't know if, like, are any of you starting to feel like just kind of, not despair, but just kind of like a big bad case of the ennui, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. Like my kid has not seen, my parents have not seen my kid since Christmas of last year. You know, like that's a year of her life that's just like gone from them, except on FaceTime and Instagram or whatever. And then I do get annoyed when I just see people like, oh, I'm just flying to New York to go, like, you know, like just to head out there and see some people, or like, you know, it makes me insane. So I think that's another part of it is like you feel like you're being like righteous and other people are being so selfish, and it's like for some reason it's like stifling you more in your little bubble.
Mm-hmm. I have like my friends that have kids. One of them has a 7-year-old who, like she said, is getting like sad from not being able to be around other kids.
Of course.
Is your daughter?
Well,
like...
my daughter is 20 months old, so I have to say I have the perfect age child for a pandemic. I really do. Like she doesn't have to go to school. I don't have to arrange her Zoom schooling. Like I don't have to. She doesn't really know that she's supposed to be around other kids all the time, you know? So it's like it's actually, she doesn't mind the Groundhog Day of it all. Like we literally get up and do the same thing every day, and I don't think she really notices that. We'll see later when her psychological profile becomes more apparent, but you know, I really feel for people who have like 5, 6, 7-year-old kids that know what school is and know that they're not in it and are missing their friends and missing that interaction, because I really think that's like so important. And I mean, you know, I'm in mom groups on Facebook and stuff where people argue about this all the time, like it's not worth the risk, their mental health is worth the risk. So it's like a lot of back and forth about that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I think that what was helping was the podding, like over the summer when everybody felt like it was safe to pick another family and pod, so your kids have some. And we've done that. We have another family that we're with, and they have 2 kids. So my daughter does get some interaction with other kids. But yeah, it's just, it's a real mess. And I don't think we'll know the effects of what this is doing to kids that are a little bit older for a while.
One of the things I find interesting is the notion of like shame, because I think people don't necessarily say what they are or aren't doing. It's like that comparison that, in that article about like abstinence only versus like what is going to be effective. Because Pompeo is a really extreme example. Somebody who's having an indoor, I would hope that that's a really extreme example, that a person who's having a party with hundreds of people indoors, with no masks or whatever, that's like so intensely, that just feels like you literally are like smacking everyone in the mouth with a dildo. It's just insane. Like it's just like next level. You're like after the president had an event that turned out to be a super spreader, you're really gonna do that again. Like that really does feel shockingly insane. But then there's gradations of Alyssa. I went, saying like I went to an outdoor restaurant twice, or Kara saying like I went to a playground. I know like some of the arguments against the playground is the bars. Do you know what I mean? It's the shared equipment. It's where the hands are of everyone. So you're sharing the surfaces, or the kids are sharing the surfaces, is normally the thing that comes into play. I was on an airplane, and even if it was after Thanksgiving, it's like technically could still be in that, like, maybe I should have waited like another week, or like maybe you should have waited until January. And the question is, it's like, how do you balance your own mental health, your own not like if you have depression, if you have anything like that, how do you balance those things so that you can stay healthy and okay in the circumstances? And how can we kind of create a couple of systems that are essentially, with better leadership, have more finite sets of rules around them? And I get that there was a lot of like, because New York opened up for a little while. They had outdoor comedy shows with rules where people were socially distanced. And I had some friends who drove to that side of the country because, it wasn't just comedians making up those rules. They were instated by the government. It's like France and Spain both had a second wave, and then they shut down completely for like, I think a month to 6 weeks. And then they were able to slowly open back up again. America has been like particularly notorious for not being able to get their shit together in this way that's like, I don't know if it's because it's states. I don't know if it's because there's 20% of the population who's going to like speakeasies and like just like putting fingers in each other's butts and then in their mouths. I don't like, I genuinely am unsure.
I actually first heard of speakeasies on last week's SVU episode, not to bring it back.
Which is about all of this.
Yeah, they talk about like this girl going to this like in New York City, this COVID speakeasy, and like, hooking up. And I was like, that's a thing. Like, I mean, obviously I'm not really in the swing in New York singles scene anymore, but like I had no idea that was a thing.
Yes.
I mean, people in New York are so angry and horny. Like,
yeah.
I mean, when I was living there, my main takeaway is that everybody is very mad and very horny.
But you know what, though, in defense of New York, is that this is why what Trump has done is such a catastrophe and such malpractice, because we needed a national strategy. If there had been a national strategy, whether it came to invoking the Defense Authorization, the Production Authorization Act, so that we all would have had fucking PPEs and masks. I mean, it took me like three months to have more than one mask up here. And the thing is, in New York, Cuomo did. Like, it took he and de Blasio a bit of time to get in sync, and they're still not totally in sync. But they shut this shit down. We were closed. Like, New York, the entire state pretty much had to stay home. And so now it's like, well, we did our part, but other people in the country didn't do their part. And then they came to New York, and then everyone was like, well, we already suffered, so fuck you. And like, if he had made the entire country take the pain, I mean, I'm not a scientist. I've read so much, though, that so much from smart people who said if the country had shut down for 2 weeks, so much of this would have been avoidable. And so I think that's the thing, is that you have people who have been so rigorous, and now they're like, well, fuck you. I'm sorry everybody in North Dakota went to the super spreader Trump rally, and that all these places where there have been Trump rallies, well, fuck you. I don't want to stay home anymore. But yet, here we are.
So the state response being a big part, like the fact that it was state by state as opposed to having like because all those other countries did have nationally imposed.
All of them did.
all of France, all of Spain. There's 2 countries in Scandinavia that are like they never shut down, but then they were very tight on their border controls. I think, gosh, like Caroline, I don't know if you can pull that quickly, but it's.
Sweden tried to do like the herd immunity. I don't think that worked.
That didn't go very well.
Yeah. But if you look, even Kiran, in the UK, Boris Johnson was like fully on board with Trump, and then his ass got COVID. Bad. So bad he named his kid after his doctors. And then they have just shut down. But it is, by and large, the country feels the pain, and he leads by example. He's been wearing the mask for months and months and months. Imagine if Trump had put a fucking mask on back in May. We would not be where we are right now. We would not be.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is the furloughing. So it's like when England shut down again, it goes without saying that everyone will be furloughed at an 80% version of their salary. So there isn't the same like you're shut down, your business is going to go under, or it's one PPE loan that you have to get. So the economic consequences are something that is, essentially at least front loaded by the government in the short term, and then everybody's great grandchildren will be paying for that for the rest of their time. The people with the slide tattoos, it's going to be they're going to be dealing with the cost. Yeah.
I mean, the way we went about it was so ass backward. Like, we kept bars open and kept, theaters and indoor gathering places open and closed schools, which was like the dumbest possible thing. Like, kids are suffering, and now it's dangerous for teachers. And, my mom works in a school, and they've had to shut down more than once. And it's like, we did it in such a stupid way. And people were so like adamantly anti-mask in a way that's very unbecoming and weird. I was actually reading this week that that some doctors now think that because COVID is a vascular disease, it may have long-term impact on a man's ability to become erect. And my first thought was like, we should have been saying this from day one.
Had we known.
Yeah, we should have just made it up. We should have just been like, it's going to make it so your dick don't work. And then people would have worn masks. Everybody would have worn masks.
Next pandemic, that's the plan. We got to do that.
Immediately come out and say, like, it's going to break your penis.
Yeah. This makes your dick just crack in half, this disease. You're going to have to wear a mask.
It's dick cracking disease. Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, it's a shame that we have to frame public health in such selfish terms. Like, the only way to get people to act in a way that takes care of other Americans is like, oh, it might actually make it so your penis won't get hard. That's that's the only way to get people to do anything to take care of each other, and it's just such a shame. And just going back to the vaccine real quick, like, I think I would probably be number 300 million or whatever, but I think about a lot of people, a lot of women my age. I'm in my late 30s, and at a point in my life where I'm thinking about starting a family, and we don't know how it affects fertility and pregnancy, and that's a decision that women that because this vaccine was rushed for a legitimate reason to market, we don't know how it affects that.
I'm actually pregnant right now, and not to announce on Hysteria.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I won't be able to take this.
Show us your stomach. I want to see your belly.
I won't be able to take this vaccine until early 2022.
Yeah.
So I will be relying on herd immunity all next year, if that's if that happens.
See, that's legit, though. That's a legit reason to not get a vaccine, as opposed to someone who's like, I'm just going to wait for everyone else to do it just because.
Well, it's also going to hundreds of thousands of millions of healthcare workers and people in nursing homes. So you're going to know if it makes you grow a unicorn horn or something like that. You're going to know. So everyone that's like, I'm waiting. It's of course you're waiting. You're not allowed to have it yet.
Yeah, good decision that you totally didn't make at all.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is a great conversation. I'm sure we're going to talk about more COVID stuff because it's going to be a part of our lives for quite some time. Kara, I'm really glad that you were here for this conversation because like the thing about moms and kids and that sort of thing is such a huge issue during the pandemic. So, next time we need a mom, we might call you up and be like, come on.
Happy to be your mom respondent or whatever.
can you mom respondent? Okay, ladies,
are we not creating cute words? Virus-itis.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. That's right up there with like COVID-itis. I was
Vaccine-itis.
Vaccine-itis. There it is.
Oh, guys, I'm not going to apologize. I'm not sorry at all.